Howdy, I'm Nick from Fouch Off Grid. This is the story of how I moved out into the woods and built a house. I was determined to build a timber framed home from trees on our property. It was July of 2015. We broke ground on actually digging our foundation for the house. While the concrete was being worked on, I was cutting all of the joinery for the timber frame. And then late August, we stood up the frame of the house with the help of about 40 or so friends and acquaintances, neighbors, friends from far away, and friends from nearby. All showed up and we threw a party and raised the frame for our house. We even had the same friend who dug the foundation. He showed up with his backhoe just in case. So before that winter, we were able to get a roof on it to keep the thing dry and get all of the exterior walls framed in and house wrap on it. But then in the spring, the following spring of 2016, we started working on finishing it out. I'm Nick from Fouch Off Grid. Today we're gonna do sort of a wrap up on our mountain dream home. We'll click through the projects we did this year. So first off, we installed the windows that we had been hauling around for 3 years. We had gotten these all for free, and it was time to get them into the frame. I said, Esther, who am I gonna get to help me put in windows? And she said, maybe I could help you. And she did. So it worked out great. It definitely took 2 bodies to put all the windows in, but they fit just as we planned them to fit, and I'm really happy we have this much glass in here. We already knew that our water source was good, and it was time to try pulling water out of the storage tanks that are in the ground in a different way. So we installed a 12-volt pressure pump, and it worked out great. I went ahead and built a little box in the ground for it. I put it down low so it didn't have to pull quite so hard to get water up to a usable level, and it worked as advertised. So having decided that we're going to do a spiral staircase, I chased down the right pole for the center of it, and I thought it would be a good idea to set that on a concrete footing before we poured the floor. So it's time to put that pole up, get it secured into the ceiling and secured into the ground. The house was designed to have a slab on grade, and I still feel really good about that decision. We put a lot of work into leveling and doing the gravel bed and doing insulation and PEX piping and all of that so that we'd have radiant floor heat. I think that eventually the floor heat will be really nice. We have yet to to implement a way of heating or moving that water. But I still feel good about the decision to put it in there when we're pouring the floor. The floor pour and everything went really pretty smoothly. I was really happy with the work that we paid for. You know, it was one of the things that we paid other people to do, but it turned out really nice. And from there, I was able to do all the polishing and staining and sealing myself before anything else, before there was any other finished surfaces around, because it was a wet process. Having just installed the The water pump, I was able to have a hose to spray down the floor, almost continuously as I polished and cleaned the floor. If I had the staining to do again, I think I would have chosen a little different color, or maybe to go a little more dramatic with a mix of colors. The floor, for all the work that went into it, is just a little boring. We don't hate it, but if you were able to plan everything out with the big picture in mind, I think we would have gone maybe just a little different direction with the final product. So over last winter, we arrived at a bathroom arrangement that we were happy with. We knew we were looking for a clawfoot tub. We knew where the sink was going to go and generally what that was going to be, and that composting toilet would be in there. So with that arrangement and having acquired a clawfoot tub over the winter, I was able to sort of finalize the size of the bathroom and frame that all out. That required a little bit more milling. I had to turn some of my reject posts and beams into nice straight 2x4s, but still it was all framed with material from the property. And I went ahead and made our little utility loft above, which has yet to be really filled up with awesome equipment, but it will be one day. We went ahead and wired the entire house for AC. Eventually we'll have a big inverter, and we'll be able to use solar power and power all of these outlets. We just wired it the way that we thought a regular house would be wired, just for convenience, for lighting and outlets. And we had a good friend come out and help us do all that wiring. I'm really glad that we did it, although it hasn't been put into service just yet. I know that we'll be grateful that all that work is done under the drywall. So with the floor done as our first finished surface, it was time to move on to another finished surface. I had to complete all of the layers of insulation in the ceiling before I was able to apply these blue stained pine boards that I had made over the winter. So that was spray foam and furring out the underside a little bit, denim batting and a vapor retarder. And then I was able to start putting up these boards. I was really happy with how these turned out. It was one of the first things that I milled on the property, and it's thoroughly enjoyable to look at from my bed.
Mom, this is really pretty.
So before we could move on with utilities, we're bringing in propane and plumbing for all of the fixtures. We had to finalize our kitchen design. So that took a little bit of back and forth, but I think we arrived at something really useful and attractive. And when I actually get around to building it, I think it's going to be awesome. We did all of that work before we put in water and gas. I was pretty determined to only have one wet wall in the house and not an exterior wall. So we have all of our water plumbing all on one wall. It's this wall between the kitchen and the bathroom, which is pretty standard, makes a lot of sense. And it made for really limited plumbing runs. It also made this wall incredibly crowded to have all of the water lines, gas lines for the water heater, some fresh air ventilation for the battery loft. Boy, it seems like there's a lot more in there. Oh, and the vent for the drain vent that has to go all the way up. It made that wall really crowded, but it all works. It's all in there, and I did it all myself. We put in 3 different doors. They're all second-hand doors. I'm really happy about my decision to do the big dog door in this one. We found it as is, and the dog loves it. I like not getting out of bed to let the dog out. And so far, no critters have made their way through there other than the ones we feed. The doors seem to all be working relatively well. I got them well sealed for the winter, and I'm just really happy with how they turned out. Here, go out. I had been looking forward to the metal work of the spiral staircase for a long time, and I'm glad that I got all the equipment in place for me to be able to do that. I still did it with a pretty bare bones metal shop, but I was able to pull it off with what I had, and the treads all turned out as good as I could have imagined, and I was happy with the decision to do steel work for the bridge that connects the 2 lofts as well. The floor on the lofts, I'm pretty happy with, considering that it was made out of material that I had, and it achieved the look that I thought that I wanted in the first place. There is still flooring to go up there. And I'm made aware of it every time the kids run back and forth. It's pretty loud still. The curved part had to be done completely in place. There's no other really good way to do that in a shop and then have it fit just right. But it does fit just right because I did it right here, and I think it looks great. And there's still a wood cap to come, but at least it's safe. We haven't had anybody fall through it or anything, and it does the job. So the drywall and the texture and the paint and everything going up really kind of brought it all together, made it look like a finished interior. Even though there's details to come, having that surface made a huge difference. I'm really happy with our paint colors, and I'm happy with the amount of insulation we put in there. We had a friend with a drywall company come and do that drywall work for us. I was freed up to close in the cellar and get shelves in there and everything, so that before winter came, Esther had a place to put all of her canned goods she had worked so hard on.
The stuff we can.
So far, the cellar is holding a really pretty consistent temperature. It's just under 50 degrees. Maybe low 40s sometimes, but it's not letting anything freeze, and everything's safe. One of the best decisions we made on the house is to build a rocket mass heater. Obviously, it still has some work to go, but it is fully functional. It's really kept this place nice and toasty, and it has cut the amount of work that we put into keeping warm dramatically. So we burn in the morning just for 3 or 4 hours, and we stay warm all day. We moved in here before we had a working bathroom, so it was a long hike down to the outhouse. But within a couple weeks of moving in, we got all of the parts of the bathroom put together. And that's probably the biggest change, along with the running water in the bathroom. That's one of the biggest changes for us moving out of the yurt. So we have an indoor bathroom with running water. So.
And hot water.
And hot water at that. So pretty awesome. Went ahead and did the tile floor right away so that I wouldn't have to take out everything and go back and do that floor. We'll have to, disassemble a little bit to do paint and trim and stuff, but it's not anything like removing a bathtub in order to put tile underneath it. So I did the tile, got the bathtub seated in there, got all the drains hooked up and supply lines and everything, and got that dresser converted into our vanity, and I built the little composting toilet, which is basically a plywood box with a bucket in it, but it works really great. So we do have a septic system, which is where our gray water is going right now. The way that I plumbed it, we were able to divert the gray water from the septic and collect that and use it in the spring. But during the winter, it just makes sense to not deal with that. I think probably my favorite project so far, well, it's hard to decide, but I really liked that I was able to incorporate some metalwork, and I remembered that I liked it, that I was reasonably good at it, and that, you can make really awesome structural and beautiful things with really very little. So I was happy to get back into metalwork with the staircase and everything. Can't think of anything that really just failed miserably. So nothing stands out as a big bummer. The gratification is pretty delayed because we're moving in before it really looks the way that I know it could look. So it's still largely living in my project. But it's a project that keeps everybody warm and safe and happy, and we get to be together in here. So that's pretty great. I am looking forward to living here for a very, very long time and seeing all of those little details come together. We won't have any shortage of projects around here next year. Working on the exterior, working on the kitchen, making things look nice, and we're going to go ahead and break ground on building a workshop for me so that I can generate, add a little value around here. So we can all look forward to that.
We've taken to calling it the little house. It's not a tiny house, but it also isn't nearly as big as many of the homes of our kids' friends and family. It's a little house, and it seems to be just about exactly right.
Good night, little house.
So this entire process we've documented in our YouTube series, Mountain Dream Home. We're now in season 3, where the house gets pretty outside. And things get a little more finished, a little more comfortable every day. And you're all invited to come and check it out. We'll put things up as we're able to finish them. I'm Nick from Fouch Off Grid. Thanks for watching.